All right, and moving on now, President Muhammadu Buhari is yet to give assent to the 2018 Electoral Bill amendment passed by the National Assembly on July the 24th and transmitted to him on August the 3rd.
Absolutely. Now, the move by lawmakers to alter the sequence of elections in the country was part of the amendments contained in the bill sets the legislature and the executive on a war path. But human rights lawyer Femi Falana wants President Muhammadu Buhari to urgently sign the bill into law, stating that whatever modifications the bill seeks to make to the election sequence would not affect the 2019 polls.
Amongst other things, the bill seeks to eliminate major electoral malpractices, including the use of underage and alien voters, vote buying, alteration of results and manipulation of voters' register. Meanwhile, the People's Democratic Party has accused President Muhammadu Buhari of deliberately delaying the signing of the Electoral Act Amendment Bill to promote his hidden agenda. All right, we have Ziggy Ibe, a political analyst, in the studio with us right here. Thank you so much for joining us. Good morning.
Thank you. A pleasure.
You're welcome.
And in Abuja studio is the national chairman of the Advanced People's Democratic Alliance, APDA, Kabiru Shitu, is also joining us from Abuja studio. Good morning. Good to see you on TVC Breakfast. Okay, let's begin with you, Ziggy. This bill was handed over, was, of course, transmitted to President Buhari in February. And then you had these issues, the whole electoral process, electoral reordering issue, there was a back and forth. That was vetoed by President Buhari, of course, sent back to the National Assembly, only for the National Assembly to expunge those offensive aspects of the bill, and then sent it back to President Buhari. But still, this bill hasn't seen the light of day. What do you think are the implications of this delay?
From the both branches of government, I mean the presidency, the executive, and the legislatures, both people or both arms have not been able to mend their ways. And as such, one arm is trying to see what could be held against the other, so that it could be a reason why certain things are said or done. And as such, the bill, don't forget, recently we've had going back and forth of electoral issues, the voting of president if he refuses assent to the order, the electoral order. And that, as it were, has been put to rest temporarily. Maybe pending when this will be assented to by the president. But away from this, both branches of government, executive and legislature, are not really having in mind the plight of the people. Because going back and forth, trying to bring what will tarnish the image of the other, I don't think is in the interest of the people. Okay? When the issue of the electioneering reordering was rejected by the president, you remember there was a BICA, and the BICA is either if president refuses the assent, then they will veto it. That eventually was put to rest temporarily. Then coming now for this electoral bill, for an assent from the president. And don't forget, we have a lot of things that should be discussed that will bring about a succor, and not necessarily bringing a bill or an amendment that will favor the arm of the government for their own selfish end, and that is not right.
All right, let me come to you, Kabiru, in Abuja. Nigeria is signatory to ECOWAS's protocol on democracy and good governance that no modification should be made to the Electoral Act 6 months to the election, and Nigeria is already at that window. So how urgent is it for President Muhammadu Buhari to sign that bill into law?
Thank you. Good morning. This brings the principle of separation of power and checks and balances into face of Nigeria. when you look at the checks and balances, you look that, yes, there's the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. These are three arms of government. And then there's principle of checks and balances in which issue of this electoral come in. When the legislature put up Electoral Act, the executives head by Mr. President will also look at that bills, how effective and of what advantage will it be to Nigerian citizens. I believe that is what has put a delay to signing of this electoral bill. They are looking at it, okay, the sequences of the election as it was, and the new sequences of election as proposed. If you look at it, it's just an issue of probably, I would say, both arms are now wanting to take advantage of one clause or the other. And the executives are now looking at it, look, as you have earlier said now, just few months to election, how do you change the sequence of election? I don't think sequence of election is an important issue in this regard. We have been holding elections, and for us, if executives delay the signing of this, in fact, not even delay, now it's already belated. You cannot sign Electoral Act now when everything has been set. The political parties have already put up their timetables. The electoral umpires has already put up their I think it's a belated issue.
But that has been addressed.
Yeah, the electoral sequence. Yeah, that's a matter that has been put to rest. And with the removal of that particular offensive clause in the proposed electoral bill, from where you stand, Alhaji Kabir Shitu, how much difference really do you think this new electoral bill, if passed to law by President Buhari, would make to the 2019 elections?
I don't think it will help us. There is no advantage in it. Every political party, as we are talking today, have set their agendas. They've set timetable. The electoral umpire has set timetable. It will only cause chaos, because are you telling people if you sign this electoral act and where it is not in conformity with their timetable, they have to go back and reject their timetable? Are you saying the people that's already put themselves forward for governorship, presidential, and other, by the time you sign this electoral act, they have to go back into the table? Then you withdraw us back, and that you are saying probably the election will not hold. And you know, there are laws. 3 months before the handover, you have to conduct election. So there's, for now, that is why I say it's a belated issue. It's an issue that we should put aside and move on with our electoral processes.
All right, let me just come to you, Ziggy, because we need to clarify here. The National Assembly already expunged that portion of the amendment whereby the sequence of the election has been altered, was altered anyway. But looking at other issues to be amended, waiting for presidential assent.
It is still the same old bill that is still rearing its ugly heads. Just like I said earlier, it is just another way to get at someone.
Who is trying to get at who now?
The National Assembly should do away with it. It's an obnoxious bill. Okay. It's not going to help us. The election is very close, and you are bringing a bill that will alter certain arrangements.
No, the issue of alteration has already been dealt with.
Yeah, but it has not put to rest the way it were, because
what the National Assembly is saying is, look, if this electoral bill is passed into law, it will help in engendering free and fair elections come 2019. That's what they're saying.
There's a law,
yes,
that if passed would not help us here, and this law will not, because 2019.
How? It addresses underage voters, foreign voters.
Yeah, but
so how will that not help
already
Nigeria?
Elections have been set, timetable has been set, arrangements have been set. So if you bring in these laws, are we not seeing it altering certain arrangements that have been put in place?
How?
So the law, if passed, would alter a lot of arrangements for 2019 general election.
Okay, let me come.
That
Ziggy,
law,
let me come in here. Let's just clarify. For example, if card reader doesn't work at the point of voting, and then meaning that another one has to be provided, but if another one is not provided, that election has to be shifted and must be conducted within 24 hours. Are you saying that is not good for this upcoming election? Very good, but that has been working. That has been working. Remember that when it failed in 2015, another card reader wasn't used in some areas. But an alternative was provided. So they went back to the old register to look at and that voters. Was conducted. There are certain things we should do at this point that will engender probity, and that will be to follow the already set timetable. Let me tell you, when the National Assembly, you know, they are still bickering about President's refusal to accept that they wanted to veto it. Yeah, and because they couldn't do that, they've now brought another issue or another bill that will shunt that very process. And if this is done, it is another way of trying to destabilize what already has been put in place. To me, 2023 election, if 2019. I know. Oh, okay. What I mean is, this bill should be presented after. Ahead of. Yes, if it eventually will be presented for an amendment, should be after 2019 general election against 2023. That is another ample time to really prepare for an upcoming election than bringing a bill that will be effective, that will, if effective, will cause another problem, another arrangement. Okay, so that will not work well. Status quo ante should be, you know, maintained as far as you're concerned. Let me take it to Alhaji Kabir Shitu in Abuja. The National Assembly, in coming up with this electoral bill, says, number one, that it will help in fast-tracking the declaration of election results. That's number one. Eliminate results tampering. Vote buying, of course, is one of the challenges that Nigeria unfortunately witnessed in Ekiti, for example, in the last July 14 election. And, of course, the final results announcement will also be facilitated as quickly as possible if this bill is signed into law. So don't you think some of these issues, you know, the reasons the National Assembly is putting out, you know, very important to ensuring a meaningful 2019 election?
For us, in order for you to be able to, when I was chairman of Interparty Advisory Council in 2012-2013, we proposed that Electoral Offences Commission should be put in place. If you have Electoral Offences Commission, and people know that if they snatch ballot, if they pay money to buy vote, and they are being caught, they will be penalized. There will be penalty for them. Nobody would bet for you to just go that. What will it stop? Tell me, instead of them to promote that bill we sent to them, for how many years now it has not been promoted? If you have bring up Electoral Offences Commission, it will have helped. And then we say put up proportional representation, so that if a party A win 49 and party B win 51, party B winner takes all. If these two bills, if they are sincere, let them go back to these two bills and pass those two bills. Those two bills will curb what you are saying now. Because first of all, if you put up proportional representation, people will not be too, winners take alls will be eliminated. So, and people know that if they strive to get certain percentage of the vote, they can have send representative to the National Assembly and have representative in the government. And if you sign this bill we are calling of Electoral Offences Commission, it has took over all this trouble they are going about, issue of vote buying, issue of timetable, issue of declaration, because you know that if you're supposed to declare and you didn't declare, there's Electoral Offences Commission which the bill will deal with you. If you refuse to, if you take a gun or you went and snatch ballot, there's already an institution that is watching. And then they can also, this institution will also be empowered to say, look, if you have committed these offenses, you will not be elected. Where are those two bills in 2013? Why can't they fast track those bills? What are we talking about vote buying? Vote buying just started from Ekiti elections. And then issue of vote buying has come a long way. Is it now just 6 months to the election that, or 5 months to the election? That I think Nigerian, we should not deceive ourselves. Countries are not amending constitution this way. How many amendments have you got in American Constitution? How many amendments do we got from Britain Constitution? How many amendments? Argentina Constitution started since 1816. It is only in 1996 that they changed few of it. Up to today, they still maintain that 1816 constitution. Our constitution has gone various ways. Every year, we change our constitution. I think that it is until Nigerians change their mindset, I don't think we'll get anywhere. Okay. I believe that we should be more patriotic. We should love our country than anybody. It's not for us to compare ourselves to countries that don't want us to exist. Okay, let me come in here. It is time that patriotism should come in. Legislation should be by patriotism. All right, Kabir, let me come in here. First off, the Nigerian constitution was put in place by the military, and that is why many Nigerians have been clamoring for a people's constitution. And that is why the legislature over time, not during this administration alone, have been amending sections of that constitution. Now, that aside, it brings me back to the question I asked you earlier. ECOWAS, of course, Nigeria is a signatory to that agreement, to the protocol of ECOWAS for good governance and democracy. Any electoral act can be amended 6 months before an election, but not close to an election. And interestingly, President Muhammadu Buhari is even heading ECOWAS at this point. So how important is it really? Are you saying that ECOWAS is not, in place to put that kind of agreement forward? You see, Nigerians must, from now, know that we are to lead the world, especially the African countries look up to us. And whatever we are doing, we must be patriotic. We must, first of all, look inward. What will our country as a nation will achieve? Not an individual gain. Until we change from this, if we amend our constitution from now till 10 years to come, we'll get nowhere. We have to get that mindset, change our mindset, believing in the country, not individual. If you are in an institution, you head an institution, believe that one day you are also going to leave that institution. It should be institutional, continuation of our institutional activities. Not that as I come, I change the other. That's what is happening now. People look at what will benefit them, and they go for it. They now amend constitution to suit them. When they leave, another person come, amend. So also it goes to our other various aspects of our life. Until we have our mindset to say, look, it is time that we are patriotic to our country. It is time that Nigerians come first before anybody. It is time that we believe that we as a people must make this country to work. People are on the street suffering. We are only talking of changing something to make us a leader of somewhere. What are we doing to legislate, to put food in the table of Nigerians? Nigerians are there wildly in poverty. We allow in fact, I don't want to digest, but we must be patriotic. Patriotism should be the bane of whatever constitution we want to put in place.
That point is very well taken. Of course, patriotism really should be the fundamental for, when it comes to any policies of government. Let's even look. Yeah. You didn't really answer the question. Unfortunately. Ziggy, we're about to, leave this particular issue right now. Yeah. The ECOWAS Protocol on Democracy and Good Governance, of course, just like we've stated earlier, states that 6 months before election, there should be no modification unless by a majority of political players. That is what that protocol says. Now, which aspects really would you like to see if this electoral bill really is to be tampered with at all? Take, for example, the 91 political parties that Nigeria has now. Is it something you think the National Assembly should be looking at curbing the number of political parties that would have?
Is it not even funny that we're having more political parties than the politicians themselves? Yeah.
Okay.
I get that because point. Some of these things are not necessary. If a bill is to be passed, we should look at the time frame. We are so close to 2019 general election, and there are certain things that should be done to really bring about good governance. Okay. If that election is conducted beautifully. But bringing a bill is an obnoxious bill.
All right, that point is well taken. We'll have to leave it there.
Yes,
yep.
Ziggy Ibe, political analyst. Thank you very much for your time on the show. And Kabir Shitu, Chairman APDA. Thank you for joining us from Abuja.